Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Jamaica's Prime Minister hopeful about crime fight and garbage collection in Jamaica. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 3rd October 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Jamaica's Prime Minister is very hopeful about crime fight and garbage collection. He said a lot of bipartisan work have been done on both fronts. Details in this Don Anderson TVJ report.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness is promising improvements in the fight against crime and garbage collection in the country soon. Mr. Holness said a lot of groundwork has been done on the two pressing issues. We have more in this report from Dwayne Anderson.
By affixing their signatures on these documents, members of the political directorate, trade unions, and business community gave their commitment to continue to work together to try and achieve security, justice, as well as better employment and education opportunities for the Jamaican people. The signing exercise took place at King's House and is the third of its kind under the Social Partnership Program. It will cover the period 2022 to 2026.
The partnership process suffered during the pandemic, and I want to thank the members of the partnership for understanding. I'm seeing various partnership members here, and I want to personally and publicly thank you for being understanding, for being patient, and for being committed to the process. We weren't able to meet sometimes for an extended period. We met online, and it was sometimes very difficult to conduct those online meetings, but members stuck with it, and the partnership survived.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness said the Social Partnership Group accepts that crime is the biggest problem in the country, and they're working on solutions, some of which have come through legislative changes.
I think we are making progress, slow progress, but progress nonetheless, in treating with the issue of peace. I think the passing of the new firearm legislation is an important step in the right direction. Very soon, we will be bringing to Parliament the Bail Act.
Turning to another national problem, garbage collection, Mr. Holness asked Jamaicans to hold strain a little longer with the backlog. He explained that budgetary constraints prevented investments in garbage collection at the peak of the pandemic, but the administration has since been able to make some progress to alleviate the crisis.
We have 50 garbage trucks coming. I saw the pictures of them. They are being shipped from the production source in, I believe it is, well, I won't say the country where they're coming from, but they're being shipped from the production source. It will take 40 days to get here, a few more days to clear, and a few more days to get into our garbage collection processes here.
Opposition leader Mark Golding, in the meantime, said he's committed to working with the Andrew Holness-led administration on national issues. Therefore, his criticisms of the administration are just to help keep the government accountable to the Jamaican people.
Criticism is not the same thing as undermining or destabilizing genuine effort to achieve progress. We are not going to engage in that. Where we're critical, it is because we see that as a necessary and responsible position for us to take on a particular point of principle. And that will be maintained.
Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.
An attack on the working class and poor. This from opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar, who kicked off the response to Trinidad and Tobago's 2023 budget debate in the House of Representatives on Friday last. Crystal Wilson of TTT News reports.
The people of Trinidad and Tobago were expecting a budget to match their current realities. That's the view of opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar as she led this year's debate of the 2023 budget in the Parliament on Friday. During her contribution, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar accused Finance Minister Colum Imbert of poor justification of government's increase of fuel prices.
That was his justification for reduction and removal of subsidies, for including multiple times the raised fuel price, laughing while citizens suffered.
The opposition leader also pointed out during her budget response that the budget presentation would gravely affect the business community.
Our economy is in crisis. Our business sector is heavily polarized, and the SME sector remains severely challenged.
Mrs. Persad-Bissessar said she is prepared to provide analytical evidence to support why she believes the budget is an attack on the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
That was their justification for government's inability to conclude negotiations with unions, offering 0 and 1 and 4% salary increases, even as the cost of living continued to rise.
The opposition leader wrapped up her budget response in just about 3.5 hours. The budget debate continues in the lower house. Crystal Wilson, TTT News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
An outbreak of acute respiratory infections in Grenada being closely monitored by health authorities.
The Epidemiology Department of the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs in Grenada is closely monitoring an active outbreak of acute respiratory infections, ARI, in the country. Based on its most recent laboratory testing conducted on September 27, the case of this outbreak is linked to the influenza A virus subtype H392. Confirmatory testing was done by the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, which is based in Trinidad and Tobago. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sean Charles stated that the influenza A H392 virus is very contagious and can cause severe illness, especially in patients who are very young or old or have chronic underlying medical conditions. The main symptoms of acute respiratory infections are congestion, runny nose, fever, cough, sore throat, body aches, and fatigue. As a result, Dr. Charles advised the public, including persons caring for sick persons and sick persons themselves, should practice personal hygiene that is known to be effective in preventing ARI, while the Health Ministry has encouraged the public to take note and take all the necessary hygienic measures to protect themselves and their loved ones.
Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernanda outlines how the Bahamian police plan to combat gangs and guns. The ZNS News Report tells us more.
Meantime, police are closely monitoring a growing gang culture after 8 illegal weapons were confiscated from separate shootings here in New Providence last week. Police Commissioner Clayton Fernanda says detectives will continue to do their part to get to the root cause of these gangs wreaking havoc on communities.
We know that there's a gang, a group identifying that generally, not just Dunmore, but that's the Baytown area, cover all of that. And Dunmore Street is in that Baytown area. And we know that it's a hotspot, not only for guns, but the sale of drugs. And you have a small group of individuals who continue to wreak havoc. We know who they are, and that's why we continue to go after them to disrupt it.
Well, the commissioner assuring that gang units have also been established on Grand Bahama, with officers there adopting the very same approach.
During my visit about 2 weeks ago, I communicated with the team down there, and based on the intel, just about 3 active groups are down there. We know who they are, and we are paying attention to that. We are in communication, collaboration with our unit from here, and also in GB, and they will be collaborating. And when we have to move in, I will send teams down there to go and assist and to disrupt what is going on.
In the meantime, the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Philip Davis, gives a communication to Parliament on his administration's first year in office.
What a difference a year makes. Those comments coming from Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis as he reflected on his administration's first year in office during House of Assembly proceedings Wednesday. Prime Minister Davis said back in September of 2021, under the previous administration, the country was in a state of fiscal, economic, health, and educational crisis. However, he said the economy is now on a path to recovery and progress, while the government has put measures in place to bring relief to Bahamians and residents across the country.
We are making good progress on many of the commitments which we made in our blueprint for change. But the war in Ukraine, which started back in February, and COVID-related manufacturing and supply chain issues in some of the major markets have combined to create a new and very serious emergency. The government is working hard to help the country recover and to provide relief from these multiple crises.
Acknowledging that there is still more work to be done, Prime Minister Davis cited the tragedies involving so many of the country's boys and young men who are involved in violence and criminality. He indicated that the government intends to explore a number of policies to address the matter.
I also raised the point to invite honourable members to consider issues specific to boys and young men in their constituencies and to share their findings of note with the government that we might come to solutions which are best for the whole country. We are in danger of losing a generation, and it is incumbent upon us all to ensure that that does not happen.
The Prime Minister said he is grateful for the trust and confidence Bahamians have put in him and his administration, and he reaffirmed his commitment to serving the Bahamian people.
It is a great privilege that the people of Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador have trusted me to represent them in this honorable house. And it is the utmost of honor of my life that I'm also able to serve as Prime Minister. When I received my instruments of office, I made a specific commitment to upholding integrity, accountability in this administration.
The House of Assembly has been adjourned to October 5th at 10 a.m. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Fern Carey.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.